Welcome to All Things Retreat Podcast. I'm Holly Porter, your host and CEO of Retreat R&R. With over 25 years of experience in designing transformative retreats, I'm here to share insights and inspiration to help you create extraordinary experiences. Whether you're a pro or just starting out, you'll find valuable ideas here. Enjoy the ride. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show today, the All Things Retreat Podcast, where we bring great leaders in the retreat industry and share their expertise with you so that you can use ideas and different innovation in your retreat business. Today, I have a guest. Her name is Tressa Beheim. She's an operations consultant and strategist. She helps growth-minded founders simplify and scale their businesses without carrying everything alone. With over 15 years of experience, she works with experts across industries to eliminate operational chaos, strengthen teams, and create systems that let their businesses run smoothly behind the scenes. She helps plan and launch profitable retreats, flagship programs, and product launches, supporting offers that have generated hundreds and thousands in revenue. Highly organized and strategic, Tressa acts as a trusted second business brain so her clients can focus on what they do best. Welcome to the show, Tressa.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
I want to call you the detail girl because,
yes.
Boy, my brain needs that.
Yes, definitely all about the details for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I like them done. I just don't like to always be the one doing all of them.
Very, very common for visionary founders, especially visionaries that love to do retreats. Super, super common. They have all the big ideas, but the details are kind of the things that drain the life out of them.
Well, how would you say you're different than a concierge service that is offered?
So I tend to work with clients long-term. So I really get to know their business in and out. And when they're launching retreats kind of over and over again, I start to learn all of their preferences and we build systems around their retreats. So they're not starting from scratch every time. It really is kind of, okay, we're redoing the same thing that we've done 12 times now. And so it takes a lot of the operational load off of them because I can do all of that kind of on their behalf.
Yeah. So what does it look like if someone hires you? What does that look like?
Yeah. So typically speaking, when people are hiring me for retreats, what we're doing is they usually have their retreat idea and they may have their property already, or they may be just sort of in the initial stages of looking for a property. And then I will often help with the sort of initial budget planning, figuring out, okay, how do we actually make this profitable, right? Because obviously the whole point of having a retreat is to make some profit in addition to changing people's lives typically. Right. And so I will help kind of establish the budget, figure out how much are we going to charge, and then also come up with them jointly the launch plan for actually filling the retreat.
Okay, nice. What do you think that you see is the biggest mistake retreat leaders make when they're launching a new retreat?
So I think there's kind of two common mistakes that I see. One is not charging enough, right? People often don't really sit down and establish a full and complete budget before they set their prices. They often just look at the big things. They'll be like, oh, well, my property costs this much and my food costs this much. So all I need to charge is this plus this. Right. And it's like, there's a lot more that goes into a retreat than just the property and the food. So I think not really accounting for a full inventory of what it's going to cost to lead this event and still have profit, right? Because that's obviously very important to this process. Even very experienced retreat leaders that have done dozens, even more than dozens of events, sometimes make that mistake. And then I think the second mistake that I see is taking on too much themselves, right? They think, well, it's no big deal. I can lead the retreat and manage all the details. And there's a very different role as the leader of a retreat that you play when you're holding that space and holding that container for your guests.
Right.
And it's very hard to hold that space and be that person while also worrying about, are there towels and is there Kleenex and did the caterer arrive on time, and all of those things that have to happen. It's very much left brain, right brain, and it's hard, really hard to do both of those at the same time.
Do you represent like boots on the ground at the retreat as well?
For some clients, yes. So some of my clients, I just do the actual, the planning and the launching and then the lead up to the retreat. So a lot of our clients, we're really just helping them up until the event starts. But then I do have some clients that I, either myself or one of my team members provides on-site support. And in that case, we are kind of usually at places that don't have full service concierge, right, on the property. And so we're kind of acting as the concierge to an extent.
Right. Okay. At what point should a retreat leader, do you think, start building systems or support instead of doing everything themselves?
I mean, in a perfect world, they're doing that from day one, like from their very first retreat. Your systems don't have to be super complicated when you're first starting. It can just literally be making sure you're organized and you have a spreadsheet where you're tracking everything. And you're pre-planning, what your communication is going to look like with your guests, right? Your systems can be very simple from the beginning and then get more complex as needed. But ideally, you're having those systems from day one, but definitely you need them when you're starting to have more than one retreat a year, right? If you're having one retreat a quarter, especially if we're talking about international retreats, there's just so many moving parts that you can't do it if you don't have those systems in place.
Very true. Yeah, very true. Let's talk about what it actually looks like behind the scenes of a successful retreat business. Pull the curtain.
So I think, obviously every retreat business is a little bit different and it depends on what you're offering. But I think the thing that often surprises people and surprises guests is just how much work goes into making a retreat seamless and how much work goes into the like the actual timeline of the event to make it appear as if there is no timeline, right? Like the sort of one of my clients that we do probably 6 events a year. One of the things that she often says is guests should never realize that I literally have a moment-to-moment schedule pre-planned of what we're doing at all times, right? Like if I'm doing my job as the retreat leader, they have no idea that every moment is choreographed and pre-planned, right? And people often think like, oh, this was so much fun and this was, I just love this so much. And, but then they don't stop to think like, well, why was that? Right? That's because this event was so well planned and so much went in, so much thought and care went into it. It's not the same as just showing up and going on vacation, right? It's a very different experience. And I think people don't always realize that because they're, the sign of a good event is that your guests had a great time, and that they don't see all of that, right? They don't see all the behind the curtain.
Like the attendees, like I think sometimes when new retreat leaders come on board and they go to a retreat, oh, I want to do this and it looks so easy. Like they're not, if it looks easy, it's because the retreat leader did a good job. Preparing, right?
Exactly.
Because there's so many in events and retreats. There's so many behind the scenes things happening. And if they look flawless, it doesn't mean they were, right?
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times we've had, issues that like nobody ever saw, right? Like the times that the caterers forget to bring the right food, right? Like how many times has that happened at an event? Countless times. And you just figure out something to make it work, right? And hopefully you do it in such a way that your guests have no idea like what, mini crisis is happening behind the scenes.
It's so funny. This is so unrelated, but it just reminded me of a story my mom, who's passed on now, that she used to tell. We used to cater weddings with her when we started doing events. And she somehow, well, she had 9 kids, so I'm going to give her that. She had it on the wrong day, a wedding cake. And these people didn't have a wedding cake for their wedding. Like, you almost can't like make that up. I
Yeah.
mean, if
Yeah.
you don't have a wedding cake, it's just not there. Anyway, it just made me think of that story. And I thought, oh my
Yes.
gosh, I
Yes.
remember asking her later as an adult when she was reminding me of that story. I was like, I don't even remember that happening, but like, what did you do? I would be mortified.
Yep. But you have to figure it out and you have to make it work. And
Yeah.
at the
Nowadays, you
same
go to Costco and get a sheet
exactly
cake. We didn't have that option back
exactly.
then. You had to make everything from scratch, and there wasn't time.
Exactly. And you have I think there's also a lot of what goes into a good event that I don't think, again, kind of behind the scenes, is that prepping your guests, right? So that they
Yeah.
know what to expect, right? We do a
Yes.
lot of retreats internationally. And we have a lot of guests that come from the US and may or may not have ever traveled internationally. And so one of our favorite locations is Costa Rica. And while Costa Rica has amazing service and they're an amazing country to visit, you can't expect to just have everything that you would have
Yeah.
in an American grocery store,
It's
right?
a third
And
world
so
country.
exactly. And so you have to kind of gently prepare your guests for what that is going to be like so that they don't show up expecting, well, there's going to be Pop Tarts in the cupboard, right? Just
Right.
because
Yeah.
they're like, that may not be something you can source no matter how hard you've tried and no
Yeah.
matter how good your property is.
Yeah.
Certain things just cannot be found in certain locations. And so thinking about that ahead of time and how can we prepare our guests to not have not unreasonable expectations, but just
Yeah.
expectations that we can't serve based on logistical things we can't change.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. How do you help founders stay in their zone of genius instead of getting buried in all the logistics?
Some of that comes down to the planning, right? So making sure that I am very clear on what their overall goal is with the
Yeah.
retreat. So, what are they trying to accomplish? And then having a really clear roadmap of how we're going to get there, right? And a lot of times with retreat leaders, they know what they want, but they aren't sure how to get from point A to point C or D or E. And so
Yeah.
helping them see, okay, once we launch the retreat, that's like the first step, but then we have all these steps in between before the event actually happens. And so making sure that that roadmap is super clear and then providing as clear and concise of updates as possible. Here's where we're at. Here's the 3 things that I need to know right now. And I don't need you worrying about, the timeline, like the detailed timeline right now. Right now, we have to pick the vendors. So kind of helping them stay on track so that they know we're moving towards that goal. And then also figuring out what are the things that are going to drain the life out of them, right? We all have things that we enjoy doing. We all have things that we'd pretty much rather do anything but accomplish, right? And so really starting to learn, is it that you don't want to go do the research to find 12 vendors, but you're happy to look at 3 and make a final decision, right?
Yeah.
Like starting to learn that. One of my clients, really just absolutely hates looking at the budget. Never wants to look at the budget. She wants to know that it's profitable and she wants to know how much she's going to make and she wants to know how much she can spend, but she doesn't want to look at the spreadsheet. Right. And so over time, we've developed ways that I can keep her in the loop without her having to sit down and actually look at the spreadsheet. And so figuring those sorts of things out are really important. And then also being that sort of, I often call it like the other adult in the room, right? So someone who can kind of step in and be the heavy, right? Because again, as the person who's holding that space in a retreat, if you're the person who's also reaching out and saying, hey, you have your payment failed, right? It just changes that relationship that you have with your guests. And so by being sort of slightly removed from that container, I can be the heavy and I can be like, hey, you've got to pay for your event in full before it happens. You can't attend if you haven't paid, right? That allows the leader to maintain that sort of relationship in a much more positive way than when there's issues like that.
Right. I love that. Okay, so you have helped plan and launch profitable retreats all around the world.
Yep.
What most determines whether a retreat succeeds or struggles?
That's a great question. I think I would say two things. I would say the one of the first things, again, comes down to that proper plan, making sure that maybe you don't know the moment to moment timeline when you launch the retreat, but you know what the plan is. You have a rough idea of what each day is going to look like, and you have a rough idea of what the outcome is for your guest.
Yeah.
We've all seen those retreats where you show up and you think it's like a business retreat and you're gonna like do all these business things, and then it's not that at all, right? And
Well, the
again, there's
opposite.
right. And it's like there's nothing wrong with what happened
Yeah.
at the event, but because it's not what you were expecting, you're kind of like, wait, what? Like what just happened here, right? So making
Yeah.
sure that you have a solid plan for the event and that is communicated very, very clearly to the guests so that they know what the event is and what's going to happen, I think
Right.
is critical. And then I think the other thing would be kind of again coming to the budget and making sure that you are reasonable in what you can provide for your guests. You are reasonable in what you can expect profit wise, and that you understand all the things you're going to have to pay for so that at the last minute you're not scrambling and trying to go to Costco and get a sheet cake for 100 people because that's the only thing you have left in the budget, right?
Yeah.
So just like making sure that, again, that sort of planning happens, but people get really stressed about money. And so if they're starting an event and they're really stressed because they didn't have the money to do the things they needed to do, that kind of starts it off in a very sour.
Right. Yeah. No, very true. What's a simple change that you've seen make a big difference for the retreat leaders who feel overwhelmed? Let's talk about
I think the communication plan is a really simple change that people can make leading up to their retreat. I often joke with my clients when we're planning the communication with guests. If you think you've told them enough, you need to tell them 4 more times, right? Because people don't read what we send them. So we can send them the same information 16 times and then show up at the event and they will say, but you didn't tell me, right? And, so making sure, like, we often have WhatsApp chats, right? So we'll tell them in the WhatsApp chat, we'll tell them in email, we'll make sure that we tell them as soon as they get on site, and then we'll tell them 3 more times, right? Like, so just making sure that we're over communicating. And sometimes, especially newer retreat leaders will feel like I'm telling them too much. I'm talking to them too much. And I really don't think you can do that. Like, I don't think when you're leading a retreat that you can over communicate. And so having that communication plan in place and really following it so that you're prepping your guests and over communicating it's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference to the success of the event.
Oh, 100% agree. Definitely. Okay, next question. How can retreat leaders grow without losing the creativity and joy that made them start in the first place?
Yes. Oh, this is, I think, it really comes down to, again, that idea of staying in your zone of genius and really trying to focus on what lights you up, right? Because when you're managing, let's say your goal is to have 4 to 6 events a year, right? If you are trying to be that creative, visionary person managing 6 events a year all on your own, right? You're going to be overwhelmed really fast. And you're not going to find that creative joy, and everything is going to be a bit of a slog, right? After a while. And so really focusing on, there are certain parts that as the leader of the retreat, you absolutely have to do. Like, no one else can do that because you're the one with the vision. You're the one with the dream, right? But there's so many things that you can offload, right? You don't have to be the one figuring out the order form. You don't have to be the one sending the emails, right? All the little things that go into it. And so really focusing on what are the things that only I can do, right? My primary client that we do like about 6 events a year, she has this magical power where she can find properties that like no one else can find. And she can give us a list of all the things that she wants in a certain location, and we can spend hours doing research and not find anything. And then she'll be like,
Right.
oh, well, I found this property and it's like absolutely perfect. And it's mind blowing, but that's one of her like magical superpowers. And so we always, after a while, we were like, we're not even going to try, like, honestly, because you are the one that's one of her little things. And so she always finds the property. Right. Yep. But ask her to do research to find caterers and you're going to show up to a retreat with no food. Right. Oh, because that's just not something she wants to do. And so really focusing on the things that the leader loves and knows matter to them is the key to not being overwhelmed.
Okay. We're going to do something fun. I got 10 rapid fire questions for you. So just the first thing that comes to your mind. There's no right or wrong answer. You ready?
Sure.
Okay. Systems or spontaneity?
Systems all the way.
One tool every online retreat leader should be using.
Ooh, one tool, a spreadsheet.
That's the best answer. Biggest profit leak that you see in a business?
Biggest profit leak. Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest is not tracking the small expenses, like not tracking the little things that go into an event. We worry about the big ones, but we forget about the little ones.
Delegate first or automate first?
Always delegate.
Launch fast or perfect first?
First.
Launch fast?
Fast or perfect? Fast. Always fast.
Most underrated role on a team?
Most underrated role is probably the project manager.
Yeah. Retreat profit killer in one sentence.
Retreat profit killer in one sentence would probably be, that's a really good question. I think, again, it goes back to the budget, not having a full itemized budget from day one.
CEO habit that signals long-term success.
White space in your calendar.
Yeah. Okay, last one. Simplify or scale? Which one comes first?
Always simplify before you scale.
Love it. Okay, well, that was a lot of good stuff. I hope you retreat leaders got out your pen and pencil or pen or paper, whatever you're using, and took down some notes. We are going to have Tressa's information on how you can contact her in our show notes. So you'll be able to go there and do that. And any last words of wisdom that you want to share?
I would say if you're thinking about doing a retreat, even if you're scared, do it because you won't regret it.
I love it. Yeah. I always say, do it scared. Do everything scared. You'll figure it out. Everything you can figure out. All right, everyone. Well, thanks, Tressa, again. And we will see everybody next week on the show, we hope. Join us every week. Thanks. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of All Things Retreat. We hope you're leaving with new ideas, fresh inspiration, and the motivation to take your retreats to the next level. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us grow and reach more retreat leaders like you. And if you have any questions, topics you'd like us to cover, or just want to say hello, send us an email at info@weretreatrnr.com. Follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all the latest updates. Until next time. Remember, great retreats start with great intentions. Let's make them extraordinary, one step at a time. Thinking about hosting a retreat? Before you dive in, let's make sure you're really ready. Grab your free Are You Retreat Ready checklist and find out if you've got everything in place from your purpose and pricing to your audience and agenda. Don't guess. Get clear. This quick checklist will show you exactly where you stand and what you need to make your retreat a success. Click the link below in the show notes to grab your gift and take the first step toward hosting with confidence.